specific saving goals, very specific investment goals. It's not about being perfect, it's honestly just about making progress. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ellie, and in this video we are going to be getting into my no spend week experience for the month of March. Before I talk about how my no spend week went for this month, I want to quickly define some terms. I do this in every video, and I feel like it's just helpful to define a couple of things before getting into the video, just because it helps us to be on the same page. So what is a no spend week? What a no spend week is for me is that for one whole week I will only spend on essential items. And what essential items look like for me can look different for somebody else. So let me define what essential items means to me. This includes groceries, gas, household items. So some examples of essential household items for me are shampoo, conditioner, dish soap, toothpaste, toilet paper, paper towels, things like that. And as of last month in February, I went ahead and added another category because I felt like it was missing. And essentially what I called this other category is miscellaneous essentials. So this is very broad. It's definitely a working title, but I want to describe some of the items that can fall within here. So some things would be medicine, medical bills or medical co-payments, any tax bills that just happen to float into your mailbox. If you have to get a passport or a state ID, like your driver's license or just any form of government or state ID. If you have a car or home emergency, like if your car breaks down and you have to fix it because that's how you get to work, or if you have a leak in your home and you have to go to Home Depot and get some items to help with that. I do speak from experience. I will get into that later in this video. And any utility bills. If you have a better suggestion as to what I can name this, please let me know in the comment section. Any expenses outside of these categories that I just mentioned would be considered non-essential. And I do want to mention that it's one of my goals for this year to do a no spend week every month. So I have done one for January and February. I did post those videos on YouTube, so I will go ahead and link those down below. If you've already watched some of my previous no spend week videos, then you know my motivations behind doing this. But really quickly, if you haven't watched those videos, I do want to give a little bit of a brief explanation as to why I'm doing this. So first and foremost, why this even sparked up, why I initiated this, was that I really needed something to encourage me to cook more at home and not get as much takeout, just because this was my problem area when it came to spending. So at the start of the year, at the start of 2024, I set a goal for myself that I really want to cook more at home, and I thought this challenge would really just help me attain that goal. Another reason why I wanted to do this is because I really wanted to become more intentional with my spending. I do feel like I suffered of impulse buying. I just sometimes made impulsive buying decisions that I wasn't necessarily happy with after doing so. So I really thought doing something like this would be the catalyst that I needed to just help train myself to improve in this area. With that being said, I want to get into this month's no spend week experience. My little baby girl just woke up. She took a little cat nap after I breastfed her. I am rocking her in her bassinet. I feel like this is just going to be a common theme in my videos. But let's continue. Let's kick it off with Sunday. We actually started our no spend week on Sunday, March 3rd up until Saturday, March 9th. So that was 7 consecutive days, aka a week. That Sunday, we were really good at eating at home. We are just getting so much better. For breakfast, we had our go-to. We had some waffles with eggs and sausages, and we've been making all of our coffee at home. It's been a while since I actually purchased coffee out, like at a coffee shop or at Starbucks. So that has been quite nice, I will say. My husband will make coffee for me while I read my books. At the start of March, I was actually reading this book, Alone with You in the Ether, and it was such a good book. I talked about this book in my March resets / March check-in video. I did rate it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. So anyway, just a little side comment on that. Continuing with our meals for lunch, we actually had pizza. I had some leftover pepperonis from a homemade pizza night that we had when my brother and his girlfriend were in town from Texas. They came to visit us here in the greater Los Angeles area in California. And so I just went ahead and sprinkled some of those leftover pepperonis on a pizza that we had purchased just at the store. And for dinner, we made a tuna melt sandwich, and then I started making some soup for the incoming week. Something that I've been doing, which my friend suggested, is to go ahead and cut up extra veggies and then just freeze those veggies for another soup event. So for like the next time that I make soup, we went ahead and did that this time around, and it was a game changer. But yeah, anyway, just a little tip to share with you all. On Sunday, however, we did actually spend money. We had a grocery trip to Aldi. That grocery trip resulted in us spending $56.48. In addition to that, I did also buy some household items on Amazon, just things that we were low on. So for example, we needed toilet paper, we needed toothpaste, we also needed some filters for our fridge and for our AC. So all of those items that I purchased on Amazon, I did bulk buy. So I don't anticipate that I'm going to make this expense again anytime soon. But anyway, what I spent on that was $122.27. So a little bit on the higher side, but again, this was a bulk purchase. So moving on to Monday. On Monday, we also ate all of our meals at home. We didn't get any takeout or anything like that. For breakfast, I had a very simple and sad cereal, but it was that kind of morning. I didn't really have time to prep anything. Later on for lunch, I did have some pizza. We still had some leftover pizza, and I also had some of the soup that I had made previously. And then that night for dinner, we actually had a very sad dinner. It wasn't even like an actual dinner, but we didn't have the energy to cook. We were just done. Like, I feel like a lot of times you could tell how tired we are based on what we eat for that day. But anyway, that night for dinner, we had peanut butter toast with honey and milk. That was it. That was all that we had. So like I said, a very sad dinner, but we all have those days. And the reason why it was just not a good day to cook or for high energy or anything like that was because we did have water intrusion in our house. So it had been raining the last couple of days, like before filming these clips. And we did have some water intrusion that we didn't notice previously. So it did mold. The ceiling in one of our closets was developing mold. And I definitely consider that an essential expense, because if you have mold in your house, like, you have to take care of it. What we spent on that Home Depot trip was $18.92. So that is Monday. There were some inconveniences, but overall we did good because we didn't spend on non-essential items. Moving on to Tuesday. Tuesday was a good day. We didn't spend any money, so we ate all of our meals at home. For breakfast, I had some oatmeal with some apples, some honey. I made myself a coffee as usual. And for lunch, I had some of the soup yet again that I made earlier that week. And then for dinner, we had some quesadillas, and my husband made me a latte. And like I said, he hands it over to me when I'm in my little reading sessions. So it's just so cozy. And then later that night, to add to the cozy vibes, we did go ahead and bake some brownies at home. We had those brownies with a glass of milk, and we've really been enjoying just making more desserty type foods at home, like brownies or just baking in general. It's been a fun time as we just move into the season of our life in which we are eating out less and eating at home more. It has led us into doing things like baking at home more. So that's been a nice little bonus. And I do want to talk about hobbies. So one of my hobbies that I oftentimes mention in my recent videos is that I like to do scrapbooking or create photo albums. So I did engage in that, and I haven't really purchased any scrapbooking supplies, or I haven't printed out any pictures, things like that. So this hobby has pretty much not cost me any money for a while. So I mention it here because I know sometimes hobbies do cost money, but currently in the phase that I am with this hobby, I haven't had to buy any materials. So that's been quite nice. Let's move on to Wednesday. On this day, there were some non-essential expenses that we'll get into, but it did not involve food. For food, we ate in for all of the meals. For breakfast, I had some waffles with eggs, and I've been trying to have like just healthier snacks and intake more fruit. So I did have a banana for a snack later that day. For lunch, I had some of the soup that I made yet again. And then for dinner, we actually went ahead and cooked some breaded fish with rice, and we just added teriyaki sauce on the fish, and it's just chef's kiss, so good. So now moving on to the expenses that I want to talk about. One of them included investing in my Roth IRA. I invested $200 into my Roth IRA. I was really wrestling with whether this was essential or non-essential, but ultimately I decided, even though it's an important thing, like to invest into your future, into your retirement, that is important, but I wouldn't say it's essential. So that's just kind of how I decided to define this. I did struggle with it. I definitely went back and forth, but ultimately I landed on this. And this just shows that just because you're making a non-essential purchase doesn't mean it's not important. It just means it's not essential. That's when definitions really become extra important. And another thing that I noticed as I was going through my bank statements just to make sure that I didn't make any other transactions for this week, I realized that I was charged for one of my subscriptions within this week. So I do have a subscription for Canva, and because this is automated, I don't think about it, it just happens, and I almost missed it. But because I went through my bank statements, I was able to identify that I did have this charge, and that was $12.99, and I would definitely consider this a non-essential expense. Okay, moving on to Thursday. Thursday was another good day. We didn't spend money at all. We ate all of our meals at home. So for breakfast, I had my oatmeal with coffee. For lunch, I had some of the breaded fish with rice. And that day, I also had some more fruits for snacks. I had banana, and then I also made myself a tea for mother's milk. It's just supposed to help me produce more breast milk. I don't know if it actually does, but it tastes really good, so I just drink it. And then I don't actually remember what I had for dinner because I forgot to film, but I do know that we ate at home, so it must have been fish or rice or a variation of that. Either way, I know we ate at home. And later on that day, I had a homemade latte made by my husband, of course, and I also had some brownies, some of the brownies that we had previously baked earlier in that week. So as you can see, it was another good day in which we didn't spend on non-essential items, and we also did not spend on essential items. Okay, moving on to Friday. On Friday, same deal. We had all of our meals homemade. So for breakfast, I had oatmeal with coffee, and then the night before, my husband actually cooked some breaded salmon bites, and he made some potato wedges, and we ended up having that for lunch the next day. And for a snack, I was so snacky that day. I remember I was just craving cereal, so I had cereal as a snack. And then that Friday night, I was so tired. Like, I literally had dinner laying down. I had the same thing that I had for lunch. I had my breaded salmon bites with potato wedges. And yeah, I was just defeated by this week. I was so tired. I feel like in general, I was always tired on Fridays, like even before I had a baby. I think the week just sort of like hits you all at once on Fridays. But now having a baby, it hits extra. And on Friday, there was an expense. My husband actually went to the grocery store. He went to Aldi, and the amount for that grocery trip was $48.79. So that was Friday. Pretty good. We're doing good. Let's take it to the last day. The last day was Saturday, and we ended on a great note. We did not eat out. All of our meals were at home. So we had our usual weekend breakfast. We had waffles with eggs and sausage, accompanied with some homemade coffee. And that day we actually engaged in fitness. We do have a home gym, so we don't pay for gym membership or anything like that. So $0 spent on fitness. And then after that, we had lunch. We just had quick quesadillas, nothing fancy, just something to give us energy. And then later on that day for dinner, my husband made some salmon sandwiches. He made this super yummy sauce to go alongside our sandwiches, and it was just so good. And that is it. That concludes the week. I honestly think we did really good, but it's time to add up everything that we spent. So let's move into that section of the video. let's start off with talking about essential purchases. So we had the 2 grocery trips. One of the grocery trips, as I mentioned earlier, was $56.48. The other grocery trip was $48.79. Then we had the Amazon purchase for all of our household items. That was $122.27. Finally, we had the other household expense from Home Depot to fix up the mold situation that we had, and that was $18.92. So all of these essential item expenses totaled up to $246.46. Now let's talk about the non-essential items. So as I mentioned earlier, there was a $200 investment into my Roth IRA, and there was the $12.99 charge that I paid for my Canva subscription. The total for those two amounts is $212.99. If I combine my essential and non-essential expenses, the total is $459.45. So that was the total expenses in 1 week. Let's compare this to February. Let's see whether we improved or if we didn't improve. So in February, what I spent on essential items was $229.40 in comparison to this month, which was $246.46. So we spent less in February for essential items, but not by much. It was only by $17.06. So it was not that different. And last month it didn't include any household item expenses. It was just for groceries and gas. Whereas this month we didn't pump any gas for this week, but we did have those household expenses. So now let's compare our March versus February non-essential expenses. This month of March, I spent $212.99 versus last month's amount of $130.75. So the difference between those two amounts is $82.24. So that's how much more we spent on non-essential items this month of March. But I'm not mad at it. I feel like I can definitely justify these non-essential expenses for the month of March more than for February. I mean, one of them was investing in retirement, like who's gonna argue with that? And for my Canva subscription, it just so happened to fall on the first week of the month, and it always does. It's just an automated charge. And both of these, investing in my Roth and paying for this specific Canva subscription, typically happened at the start of the month. So that's just one of those things. And one more comparison that I want to make across both months is on groceries. Last month, there were 3 grocery trips that totaled up to $174.70. And this month for No Spend Week, there were 2 grocery trips, and those 2 amounts totaled up to $105.27. It's an improvement for sure. So there you have it. That is what essential versus non-essential expenses looked like for the month of March for No Spend Week, and in comparison to February No Spend Week. It is time for a reflection. It is also a separate day. I had filmed the entire reflection portion of this video, and when I was editing, I realized that I did not record any audio. My microphone had died, and then when I connected it again, I guess I didn't actually connect it properly, so audio was never picked up. Anyway, it is now a separate day, and I want to go through a reflection of what I learned, what my takeaways are for the No Spend Week of this month of March. Let's get into it. Let's talk about some reflection points. The first thing that I want to address is what I think worked for us for this No Spend Week. Something that really worked was having previously defined what essential versus non-essential items are, and this is just because it allowed me to identify whether, for example, my Roth IRA was essential or non-essential. Another thing that worked for us is that we actually selected the No Spend Week of March before the month even started. I talked about this in February, how we struggled with identifying what week to treat as our No Spend Week for February because it kind of just creeped up on us. So to avoid that, this time before the month of March even started, we looked at the month and identified what events we had for that month so that we can avoid having a No Spend Week on any particular week that had events that we knew we were going to spend money on. So for example, in March, it was my husband's birthday. So we made sure that we didn't choose a no spend week for the month of March that included his birthday, since we knew we were going to spend money on his birthday. Another thing that was really nice for the month of March was that our no spend week was the first week of March, so it really just allowed us to start on a good note for the month of March, since we already started the month thinking about not spending a lot of money, and it just set the tone for the rest of the month. Another thing that really worked this time around was that I was not on social media, so I don't have a TikTok, and I actually was off of Instagram. So the reason why this worked was because I noticed that I'm just less exposed to products, because obviously Instagram, there's a lot of influencing, there's a lot of advertisement. So the fact that I'm not on these particular platforms, I feel that I was not as tempted to make certain purchases that maybe I otherwise would have made, because I know in the past that's typically when I have struggled with impulse buying, is if I see someone promoting a specific product and I think, oh, that looks cool, I feel like I could use that, and then I buy that product. Over time, these type of impulse purchases just accumulate. And with saying all this, I definitely want to say that I don't think that spending is bad, not at all. I am not like a super frugal person. I do think, however, that sometimes hyper-consumerism can become an issue, and I also do think that if you're watching this video, chances are that you're trying to save your money, whether it's because you have saving goals or maybe you have investment goals. Given that context, I do feel like sometimes just holding back on certain expenses helps us just have more money in our pockets at the end of the day, and this can definitely help us reach our savings and investments goals if we have a plan or a strategy. Something else that I think really worked for us for this no spend week of March was that we had very simple meals. We didn't complicate it, and this was also something that I mentioned in February. The approach of just going to our pantry and seeing what we have, and then buying groceries around that, or creating meals around the pantry items or the fridge items that we already had. This approach definitely decreased our grocery bills, and in addition to that, there was just much less waste because we're making sure that we are using up what we have. We're being more intentional with our meals in that way. Something else that really worked for us for this March no spend week was that we did so much more baking at home. It was honestly so nice to satisfy our sweet tooth while saving money, and at the same time just creating those beautiful cozy memories of baking with your loved one. For us, baking with our baby girl in the background. It's just the simple moments that really creates such amazing memories. I really have been appreciating baking and cooking at home in a new way that I didn't really appreciate before. I now understand why people say that the kitchen is the heart of the home. Now let's talk about what can be improved, what can be better for this no spend week. Honestly, I had a really hard time thinking of something to say for this, just because we really made an honest effort to improve for the month of March, and we did have non-essential purchases, but they are not purchases that I regret. My Roth IRA, I do that monthly regardless. It just so happens that it aligned with the no spend week for the month of March. And my Canva subscription, I use Canva often. It's one of the only subscriptions that I have for me personally, so I don't want to cancel it. I don't see it as something that I need to cancel at the moment. If you as a viewer, after watching this video, if you identify maybe a problem area that I had, or if you can see an area in which I can improve, definitely let me know in the comment section. It might just be something that I'm just blinded to, like I don't perceive something as an issue that maybe is an issue. So yeah, I definitely would welcome any feedback if you think that there is something that I can improve on for the future no spend weeks, since again I do this on a monthly basis. So that is it in regards to the reflection and just some reflection points that I wanted to express. I say this at the end of every no spend week challenge video, that it has just been such an amazing experience for our household. It has honestly kickstarted us just being extra attentive with our finances, with our spending habits. And again, this is very important for us because for 2024, we do have very specific saving goals, very specific investment goals. So it's important for us to be keeping track of our finances to the best of our abilities. And to really close this video, like for real this time, I just quickly want to say that me doing all of this is not about being perfect. It's honestly just about making progress, taking those baby steps to improve our financial situations in the ways that we want to. And if you watch any of my financial videos, whether it's budgeting videos or these no spend week videos, I am hardly ever 100% hitting the mark. I oftentimes miss the mark, and then I talk about why. So I really just wanted to express that because nothing about this channel has to do with perfection, but rather how can we improve in the areas of our lives in which we want to improve. Okay, with that being said, baby girl is waking up from her nap. And that is all I have to say for this video. Go ahead and watch some of my other videos. Please support me by liking the video, subscribing to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.